Help me understand, James. My knowledge of cryptography-based authentication is there's a private key on the device, there's a public key held off the device. I can sign something or authenticate with a private key. I can only do that with the private key, and with the public key, you can verify it. So you know it really came from that private key, which is great. And because of the hugely complicated maths involved, which I believe has got something to do with big prime numbers, but my knowledge stops there at that point, that's pretty much unhackable. You can't break it. But post-quantum changes that. What's going on?
So what you're talking about there is classic RSA encryption invented in about 1977, although it was invented multiple times in the same place. And it just means I can take two really large prime numbers and multiply them together and get an incredibly large number, but not go backwards from that. And those principles allow you to do operations one way really easily, and it's really, really hard to undo that operation, to work out what those two factors are.
So if I've got the public key, I can't work out what the private key is.
Correct.
It's just work out something that's definitely signed by that private key.
So you could check it, but you can't sign it yourself. And what happens in a quantum computer is that you can basically do all those checks at the same time. To do that, in reality, you need a machine with something like 20 million qubits, which is a special kind of bit. Instead of a normal bit, it's called a qubit. And at the moment, we think machines have got about 1,000. So there's a long way to go. But mathematically, we know how to do this. There's an algorithm called Shor's algorithm. It's been known about since the early 90s. And we're really just waiting for advancements in hardware and the ability to hold the state of these quantum bits long enough and enough of them that we'll be able to factor a sufficiently large enough number that we can basically factor 2048-bit RSA. There are a couple of mitigations. The first thing is if you go to 3K RSA from 2K, then you need many, many more quantum bits. So you're kind of delaying the inevitable, but we know with hardware that every few years you'll double the improvements. So Moore's law shows that when we focus on improving hardware performance, we can get a performance gain of double every 18 months or 2 years. We also don't know in reality how far ahead some of the nation states are with how many computers they can make with how many qubits. So that's the threat in the future, and a quantum computer capable of factoring RSA might still be 10 years away, but that doesn't mean there isn't a problem now. So if you're using SSL to send some WhatsApp messages, or to do some online shopping, or to sign your email, you may think that you don't need to panic and you've got a lot of time, but the reality is that I can capture that information, so I can record that traffic. I can't decrypt it, but I can store that now. So I can harvest that now, I can decrypt it later. So if anything you're saying or storing with that encryption is still relevant in 5 or 10 years' time, then you've got a problem now. So that's the main reason why we're seeing this push to post-quantum now, because we know the inevitable is now coming, and we need to start protecting the data now. So anything we say now that needs to be private in 10 years' time will be protected.
So coming back to what NIST are saying on this at the moment, so I think what you're saying is, at the moment, it's practically impossible to work out a private key from having the public key. So anything I'm using that private key to sign is safe, or encrypt is safe. However, at some point there will be a computer capable of performing so many what-if calculations per nanosecond, it will work out what the private key is, which is why NIST are advising you to use longer keys now. They're not quantum resistant, but because they're longer, it's going to give you more protection because that computer power is going to have to be greater to crack it.
Yeah.
So what are NIST doing about this? Because they tend to be the best funded security authority in the world. They tend to push out the standards on cybersecurity and cryptography. What are they doing about this?
So I think it's important when we talk about cryptography and algorithms in general, and if you work here at Intercede and you become a developer, the first thing you'll be told is you do not implement your own crypto. It sounds like it's easy to protect a bit of information, and you can come up with some schemes. The reality is incredibly complicated. It takes a whole group of experts with another group of experts checking their work and constantly trying to find a fault or find any kind of weakness in that algorithm. And it's been proven over the years that the only way to develop really secure cryptography is to do that as a group, and then to constantly evaluate and test that. So NIST have really led the charge on that, and that have been very successful. We haven't had any issues with RSA. We've had some issues around SSL, and those have been identified and patched. And we don't talk about SSL anymore. We talk about TLS. But by and large, that process has worked really, really well. So October 2024, NIST finally established and published the algorithms available for everyone to use, and that now gives a common standard, which has been thoroughly tested as something that everyone can implement. But it's also really important, not just from a security point of view and from a longevity point of view, it's really important that everyone's working with the same standards. Because if we look at the ecosystem, it's not just a certificate that needs to implement that algorithm. It's also the operating system. PQC is in OpenSSL 3.5.
The smart card, the PCI,
exactly.
USB token.
Everyone needs to be on the same page. It all needs to work together, and that's probably one of our big jobs here this year. Is we're ready. We've evaluated these algorithms internally. We're looking at issuing soft certs, but it's then reaching out to all our partners and all our vendors and making sure that everyone's on the same page, and everyone's delivering devices and software that are capable of these things, so that we can give a simple, straightforward upgrade path. And I think we can agree that for our customers, when they go from a normal RSA or ECC algorithm to a PQC algorithm, that experience will be exactly the same. It shouldn't be any slower. It shouldn't be any more complicated. There are no additional steps. To most users, it'll be completely transparent. But under the hood, the cryptography and the mathematics is completely different.
So I think I raised an interesting point about migration path there. And that's one of the things we've had experience in the past. When cryptography changes, it's never a static construct. So we've moved between RSA keys of certain lengths. We've moved to elliptic curve cryptography. We've seen SHA-1 move to SHA-256 over the time. And one of the things our product set does is crypto agility. So that helps customers move to a new cryptography from an older cryptography. And part of the challenge there is literally knowing what have you got out there. So what cryptography is currently deployed? When does it expire? Have I got visibility of that? And can I transition to the new cryptography? So I think you're right. People need to be thinking about it now. Even if they can't today buy a hardware device with these algorithms on that's compliant with all the standards, they at least need to be looking at it and have a plan. And the plans today may be, use the existing technology but move to larger key sizes to give yourself more of a window. But it's also start to plan in, when I start to move to this new cryptography, have I got a system that gives me that crypto agility? Can I actually have visibility what's out there? Can I migrate to the new technology, and can I see what's been successfully transitioned?
Absolutely. I think you mentioned discoverability, and I think that's really important. The other thing to know is that for certain organizations, RSA will be deprecated for them by 2030, and you'll be advised not to use it completely by 2035, and that's just based on the predictions of the rate of improvement in quantum computing. When you think about deprecation in 2030, that's only 4 years away.
Very far away. Yeah.
We know how long how complicated some of these projects can be. Even when software supports crypto agility, just finding out, you think of all the devices and all the systems using public-private key cryptography, finding out and figuring out where every system uses this, and coming up with a plan that doesn't disrupt your business, and replacing all of this by 2030 means, I think we have a responsibility to be building these tools, delivering these tools to our customers, so customers can start understanding what that process is and what the impact is on their organization. So it's not as far away as you think.